There are books that never rest on any shelf, because they were never meant for the noise and busyness of this world. They appear only in those rare moments when the human heart falls silent, when loneliness, exhaustion, or unanswered questions open a hidden doorway to something deeper. The book you are about to enter is one of them, an ancient record once believed to be lost forever, written down by the trembling hand of Thomas, the one whom Jesus called his twin, not by blood, but by the quiet resonance of their spirits. In an age when empires rose and crumbled, when the cries of ordinary people were swallowed by hunger, injustice, and fear, these teachings were not given to shake kingdoms or rewrite histories, but to rescue the small and wandering hearts searching for a way out of their darkness. For centuries, the manuscript slept beneath layers of dust. Like a fragile ember, someone hid away carefully, waiting for the day when a soul mature enough would uncover it. And today, as you listen to these words, perhaps it is no longer a coincidence. Sometimes God does not answer with thunder or miracles, but with a simple line of text arriving quietly at the exact moment we need it most. So breathe slowly. Let your mind settle like a lake after the wind has passed, and step into the world of Thomas, where light does not descend from the sky, but rises gently from the questions you have carried within you all your life. And if these words touch your heart, even for a moment, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you are listening from. And if you wish to walk through the rest of this journey with me, subscribe, so that we do not lose each other in the vast ocean of stories that surround us. Among all the words whispered across the centuries, few are as unsettling and beautiful as the first saying of Thomas. Jesus did not begin with comfort, nor with a promise of reward, but with a sentence that trembles like a thin line between life and eternity. Whoever discovers the meaning of these words will not taste death. At first glance, it feels impossible, a fragment of some forgotten magic. Yet the more we listen, the more it speaks to the places in us that quietly fear the end of things. Because the death he speaks of is not the closing of the eyes, but the fading of the soul. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. If you uncover the truth hidden beneath your fears, then something in you will rise that no darkness can extinguish. And maybe that is why these words survived, passed from one trembling hand to another, carried by those who believed that real death is not the moment the body stops, but the moment we stop seeking the light meant for us. So as you listen, let these words rest gently on your heart, not as a promise of immortality, but as a reminder that your soul is still alive, still capable of wonder, still capable of returning to the light it once knew. In the Gospel of Thomas, the journey of the seeker is drawn with a simplicity so quiet that many overlook its power. Let the one who seeks continue seeking until he finds. And when he finds, he will become troubled. And when he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and then he will rule over all. It is a path that mirrors the secret life of every human heart. For before wisdom comes, there is always a moment when the world we knew begins to crack, when the beliefs we inherited no longer fit the shape of our pain, and the answers we once trusted feel painfully small. That is the troubling stage, the place where many turn back because the truth does not arrive, wrapped in comfort, but in discomfort that forces us to grow. Yet for those who keep walking, for those who refuse to silence the questions rising inside them, astonishment appears like dawn breaking after a long night. Suddenly, the world widens, and the seeker realizes that the sorrow, the confusion, even the loneliness was not punishment, but preparation. It carved out space for something larger, something truer, something capable of holding both the fragility and the strength within us. And when the text says the seeker will rule over all, it does not speak of power over nations, but mastery over one's own inner storms, a sovereignty of the soul where fear no longer commands, and the heart finally learns to breathe freely. Perhaps that is why these ancient words continue to survive. They remind us that every person who has ever suffered, questioned, or searched in the dark is already on the sacred road that leads back to themselves. And if you are seeking now, even quietly, even without knowing where it leads, then you too are already walking the oldest and most human path of all. When Jesus tells his disciples that the kingdom is not in the sky or deep in the sea, but already within and around them, it overturns everything humanity had been taught to believe. For so long, people searched for holiness in distant temples, in rituals performed perfectly, in promises of another world far beyond reach. Yet here, with a gentleness that feels almost shocking, he asks them to look inward, not upward. The kingdom, he says, was never a place to be entered, but a truth to be recognized. And perhaps that is why so many fail to see it, because we spend our lives chasing after things outside ourselves, hoping they will fill the quiet ache we carry. But the ache is not a sign of emptiness. It is a signal that something sacred is calling from within, waiting to be acknowledged. Imagine for a moment that everything you long for, the peace you seek, the healing you crave, has been quietly resting inside your own soul from the very beginning. The Gospel of Thomas invites us to stop running, to turn inward with honesty, and to dare to believe that the divine is not far from us, but closer than our own breath. And when a person finally discovers this, not in words, but in experience, the world around them does not change. Yet somehow, everything becomes new. Among the hidden sayings of Thomas, few are as intimate and disarming as the simple declaration, "When you know yourselves, you will be known." It is a line that reaches into the quiet corners of the human heart, because so many of us spend our lives pretending to be what the world expects, carrying masks that grow heavier with time. We learn early to hide our fears, to silence our doubts, to bury the softer parts of ourselves so they will not be wounded again. Yet Jesus suggests that the path to true life is not found in strengthening the mask, but in removing it. To know oneself is not merely to identify strengths or flaws, but to stand honestly before the mirror of the soul and say, "This is who I am, with all my longing, with all my tenderness, with all the shadows I have avoided." It is a moment both terrifying and liberating, because once a person sees themselves clearly, the world can no longer dictate their worth. And perhaps that is why he says, "Then you will be known." For the divine cannot meet us in the illusions we create. Only in the truth we dare to claim. In that truth, something begins to heal, something begins to steady, and the soul remembers the light it carried long before fear taught it to hide. The Gospel of Thomas does not ask us to become someone new, but to return to the person we were before the world convinced us we were not enough. And when we finally touch that place within, even for a moment, the loneliness that has followed us for years softens, because we begin to feel, not as an idea, but a living reality, that we are seen, is known, and quietly held by something greater than ourselves. When the disciples asked Jesus how they should fast, how they should pray, what rituals they must observe to be worthy, his answer in the Gospel of Thomas is startlingly simple: do not lie, and do not do what you hate. In a world where people believed holiness lived in rules and ceremonies, these words felt like a quiet revolution. For Jesus was not rejecting devotion, but reminding them that a ritual without truth is only an empty gesture, and a prayer spoken from fear carries no light within it. Many of us know this feeling in our own lives, going through motions we no longer understand, repeating habits that no longer nourish us, acting out versions of ourselves that feel foreign to our hearts. And perhaps that is why his teaching resonates so deeply today. He invites us to return to sincerity, to choose honesty over performance, to let our actions rise naturally from who we are rather than who we think we must be. Holiness, in this hidden gospel, is not a ladder to climb but a way of being, gentle and sincere, where the soul no longer bends itself into shapes that hurt. When a person stops lying to themselves, even in small ways. Life slowly becomes lighter, clearer, and more real, as if a window long clouded by dust has finally been wiped clean. The Gospel of Thomas gathers its wisdom not in grand sermons, but in parables that seem strange at first glance, as if they were small riddles meant to unsettle the mind just enough for the heart to open. Jesus speaks of a lion that becomes human when consumed by a person, and a person who becomes a lion when consumed by the beast. He speaks of a fisherman who throws away the small fish to keep only the large one, and of seeds scattered on stone, on thorns, and on fertile soil, each revealing what the human soul does with the truth it receives. These images are not meant to be solved like puzzles, but to be lived with, allowed to echo in the quiet spaces within us. The lion is the untamed part of our nature, the wounded instinct that can devour us if we let fear rule. Yet when faced with courage, when acknowledged rather than denied, it becomes something human, something integrated and wise. The fisherman's choice reminds us that life offers many distractions, many small comforts and temporary certainties, but only the deeper truth, the truth that asks something of us, is worth holding on to. And the seeds speak of the fragility of awakening. Some hearts are too hardened by disappointment, others too entangled in anxieties to let wisdom take root. But in a soul that has been softened by longing and humility, even the smallest word of truth can grow into something vast enough to change a life. These parables endure because they mirror the silent transformations every human being undergoes, how we wrestle with our shadows, how we choose what to keep and what to release, how we slowly become the person we hoped we could be. And in these small stories, carried across centuries, we are reminded that transformation is rarely loud, rarely instant. It begins quietly, the way a seed begins its life, hidden beneath the soil, waiting for its moment to rise. In one of the most tender lines from the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus speaks of a light that lives within each person, a quiet radiance that can illuminate the whole world if allowed to shine. Yet, he also warns that when a person fails to recognize this inner flame, they fall into darkness, not because the light has vanished, but because they have forgotten it was ever there. And this forgetting is something every human being understands. Life has a way of dimming us, of covering our spirit beneath years of disappointment, loss, or the simple heaviness of surviving. We begin to believe that the brightness we once carried as children has faded for good, that the world has taken more from us than it has given. But Thomas reminds us that the light is not lost, only hidden, waiting for the moment we turn inward with enough honesty to see it again. It may appear as a small courage, a quiet intuition, a sudden clarity rising from somewhere we cannot name. And when it stirs, even faintly, it becomes a guide, leading us gently back to the parts of ourselves we abandoned along the way. This teaching is not about perfection, but remembrance, the slow and sacred act of returning to who we truly are, beneath the layers of fear and forgetting. For when a person rediscovers their inner light, even briefly, the world does not simply become brighter, it becomes possible. Few teachings in the Gospel of Thomas are as mysterious as the call to make the two become one, to let the inside be like the outside, the above like the below, the male like the female. At first, the words seem impossible, almost like a riddle meant for monks or mystics. Yet beneath their strangeness lies one of the most human truths of all. We are fractured beings, divided between who we are and who we pretend to be, between our courage and our fear, our tenderness and our defenses. This inner split exhausts us, though we rarely name it. We try to be strong while hiding our wounds, or gentle while burying our anger. And somewhere in this struggle, the soul grows tired. Jesus speaks not of erasing differences, but of healing the separation within us, of bringing the scattered pieces of our life back into a single, honest self. When the two become one, we stop fighting against ourselves, and a quiet strength rises from the center. the kind that does not need to prove anything to the world. It is the moment a person forgives their younger self, accepts their present self, and steps toward their future without shame. It is the moment the heart and mind no longer argue, because they finally want the same thing: truth. In this unity, something sacred awakens, not as a miracle from above, but as a harmony within, a stillness that feels like coming home after a long and wandering journey. In one of his quiet warnings, Jesus tells the story of a wealthy man who planned his future with perfect confidence, imagining full storehouses and a life without lack, only to die that very night. It is not a condemnation of wealth, but a reminder that abundance in the world means little when the soul itself is impoverished. Many people carry a poverty far more painful than the absence of money, a poverty that comes from losing the ability to feel wonder, to hope, to believe that life can still surprise them. We chase achievements, possessions, recognition, thinking they will ease the ache inside. Yet the ache persists, whispering that something essential has been forgotten. The Gospel of Thomas gently exposes this truth. A full life cannot be built on things that do not touch the heart. True richness begins when we stop measuring our worth by what we own and start listening to what our inner life is quietly asking of us. A person who tends to their soul, who nurtures kindness, curiosity, sincerity, may have little in the eyes of the world, yet carries a wealth that cannot be stolen, diminished, or lost to time. And perhaps that is why the parable feels so modern. It reminds us that our deepest poverty is not a lack of resources, but a lack of connection to ourselves. And our greatest treasure is not stored in barns or banks, but deep within the place we too often ignore: the heart. Among the parables preserved in the Gospel of Thomas is a story both simple and quietly heartbreaking. A man inherits a field without knowing that a great treasure lies buried beneath it. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. The tragedy is not that we lack treasure, but that we forget to look for it, too distracted by the noise of life to notice the faint shimmer beneath the surface. And yet, the parable is not meant to make us mourn what we have missed, but to awaken our eyes to what is still possible. For the treasure remains as long as the field remains, waiting for the moment we choose to dig. And when we finally uncover even a fragment of it, something within us shifts a sense of recognition, as if a part of our soul whispers, "I have been here all along." Among the most startling lines in the Gospel of Thomas is the promise Jesus gives to his disciples: "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me, and I myself will become that person." It is a teaching that feels almost too intimate, as though it was meant to be whispered rather than proclaimed. Jesus is not inviting his followers to imitate his miracles or adopt his public image, but to share in his inner life, to awaken the same clarity and courage that allowed him to speak with such gentleness in a violent world. Becoming like the Master does not mean becoming flawless. It means learning to live from the center of one's being, where fear softens and truth flows without force. Many people spend their lives longing for permission to be themselves, to speak honestly, to love fully. Yet they hold back because the world has taught them to shrink. But this hidden gospel suggests that the divine does not ask us to shrink at all. Instead, it calls us to rise into the fullness of who we are meant to be, to carry the same light Jesus carried, not as an echo, but as a living flame. And when he says he will become that person, it is a way of saying that the divine draws near to anyone who dares to live with sincerity, courage, and compassion. In that closeness, something quietly transforms. The soul straightens, the heart expands, and we begin to sense, even if only faintly, that we are not simply followers on a distant path, but companions walking beside a presence that has never stopped believing in us. In the final saying of the Gospel of Thomas, the disciples ask a question as old as faith itself: when will the kingdom come? They expected a date, a sign, a revolution written across the sky. But Jesus answers with a gentleness that feels almost like a sigh: The kingdom, he says, will not arrive by watching for it, nor will anyone be able to declare that it is here or there. For the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it. It is a truth both beautiful and unsettling, because it suggests that what we have long waited for is already woven into the fabric of our daily lives. But we miss it. Not because it is far away, but because our eyes are busy searching for something grand, something dramatic, something that will make all our doubts disappear at once. Yet the kingdom is quieter than that. It appears in the tenderness we offer without being asked, in the small courage to forgive, in the moments when our heart softens despite its wounds. It lives in the silence after a difficult confession, in the breath taken before choosing kindness, in the recognition that every person carries a story we have not heard. The kingdom is not a distant reward, but a way of seeing, a way of being, a way of opening ourselves to the sacredness hidden in ordinary life. And when we finally glimpse it, even for a heartbeat, the world does not change, but we do. The noise grows softer, the light grows warmer, and something inside whispers that what we sought has been beside us all along, waiting to be seen. As these hidden sayings draw to a close, we are left not with instructions carved in stone, but with an invitation quiet, patient, and deeply human. The Gospel of Thomas does not ask us to believe harder, strive more, or fear the unknown. Instead, it asks us to look gently within, to rediscover the light we abandoned, the questions we buried, the strength we forgot we carried. These ancient words remind us that awakening does not begin with a miracle, but with a moment of honesty, a moment when we admit that something inside us longs for more than survival. And perhaps, as you listened, a part of you stirred a memory of who you were before the world became heavy, or a glimpse of who you might still become. If so, hold that feeling carefully. Let it breathe. Let it grow. For the kingdom that Jesus spoke of is not waiting at the end of your life. It is waiting at the end of your next sincere breath. And if this journey has touched you, even softly, you are not alone. Countless others have walked this same path of seeking, doubting, breaking, and rising again. We are, all of us, pilgrims returning to a truth we once knew. So, before you leave, take a moment to sit in the quiet. Notice what has shifted. And if you feel called, share your reflection in the comments, so our paths may cross again. And subscribe, not out of habit, but so we can continue this journey together, finding the hidden light not only in ancient words, but in ourselves.